So chapter 7, Public Administration and Civil Services. Now if you take a look at uh, civil, if you look at public administration and civil services, you will, first we need to understand the difference between political and permanent executive. If you look at the definition, political executives are those executives such as Prime Minister, Chief Minister, and his Council of Ministers. These are known as political executive, and you understand politicians, right? They contest election, they win the election, and they are called political executive. In the center, we have the Prime Minister, we have the President, we have the Council of Ministers, and in the state, we have the Chief Minister, the Governor, and the Chief Minister's Council of Ministers. So these are political executive. Okay, they change with every election, and they set policies and political priorities, and they are accountable to the legislature and electorate. Each executive is responsible to the electorate because the electorate, the people are the ones voting for them. We are the electorate, right? And they are collectively accountable to the legislature, which means the legislature can pass a move of no confidence against them, and if majority rises in support of the no confidence motion, then they'll have to step down as the Council of Ministers, and I've explained that. So these are temporary, okay? They change with every election, whereas permanent executive are those executives, career civil servants. And one of the best examples is Indian Administrative Service, IAS, okay? These are permanent institutions. These are permanent these are permanent executives. Continuity despite government changes, okay? There's this post of Deputy Commissioner, and it will always continue to be held by someone. For example, the current Deputy Commissioner of Kohima is Henok, or the Deputy Commissioner of Dimapur is Dino Chongshi, right? Or the Deputy Commissioner of Longling is Manpai. So even if Dino Chongshi of Dimapur, even if he resigns, even if he retires, there will always be someone running it. So it has a permanent character, okay? And when you look at those IS officers and people who crack UPSC, when you look at the interview, they always talk about anonymity. That's the best weapon of an administrator, anonymity. An administrator is someone who shouldn't flaunt, who shouldn't present himself to be the savior of the people by emphasizing on various policy changes, going against the government, organizing protests. No, that is not his job. His job is to be a middleman. His job is to maintain stability. We have the government. There will always be tussle between these two parties, and the chaos and everything, the undergrounds, everything, even though everything is messed up, the permanent executive makes sure that the country continues to run smoothly. That's our job as civil servants, and you have to understand your role. It's a continuous permanent body, okay? It's a continuous permanent process. So expertise and institutional memory. When it comes to expertise and institutional memory, for example, let's say the Indian Administrative Service, they conduct trainings. They have more than 2 years training, right? They have field trainings, and then they have practical training, and they have theory. So if you look at these IS officers, they are expert in their field, okay? They are very expert in their field, and they have institutional memory. The office of the Deputy Commissioner, the Secretary, they have institutional memory and very well versed in what they do. But for ministers, they don't need to undergo any kind of training, right? It's all political. Whatever portfolio you receive, for example, if you're Y Paton, you have a very big influence on, he has a very big influence on the way that Chief Minister Rio behaves. And so he will always get a very good post, right? Despite his qualification. He is not even class 10 pass, okay? By normal standards, he is, by normal standards, in terms of literacy, it's quite low. So, but he will still get the Minister of Home Affairs. He will still get the advisor of this and that ministry. So you understand the permanent and political executive. This is the difference, okay? You will be asked such questions in the NPSC mains, especially the 2 marks, 3 marks questions. So make sure you understand both these two terms. And let's take a look at bureaucracy and civil service neutrality. You understand what is bureaucracy, right? These permanent executive, they're all bureaucrats, okay? If you look at the bureaucracy, we have the officers. There's hierarchy, division of work, the entire government servants are all bureaucrats. Okay, the entire government servants are all bureaucrats. And if you look at the bureaucracy of India, we have hierarchy, rank. Okay, ESC, then ESC, STO civil, then ADC, then DC, right? So we have hierarchy. In every department we have hierarchy, we have division of work. Every individual is given a separate work. For example, in the directorate we have the dealing assistants that deal with minor paperworks, and then we have the joint directors, deputy directors that assist the director, and we have the director, and in some large departments we have the principal director that oversee the work of the director and the joint deputy directors. So there is division of work, and there's also specialization. For example, in our directorate we have the NPS section, new pension schemes section, where in the dealing assistants are very good at that, they're specialized at that. And we also have the brand section, we have the this and that section. Okay, there's specialization. There's written rules and procedure, right? The government service rules, and these are permanent. And impersonality means it's not personal. Okay, they don't take judgments based on their personal opinion. They follow the rules and procedure. Okay, merit-based recruitment and BSc, we give exam, we get through merit-based, and then neutrality in practice. As a civil servant, you should always be neutral, no partisan bias. You should not support any party, and you should serve every elected government. Okay, if you are the deputy commissioner, and if the new government comes into power, not NDPP, maybe PJB, you still have to serve the PJB government. So they decide through the constitution, the laws, the rules, public interest, and professional advice. Okay, so when they talk about the neutrality of bureaucracy in civil service in your mains examination, you note down these 3 points and the features of bureaucracy. You can divide it. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So you can, if they ask you a 5-mark question, you can structure it this way. But if they ask you a 10-mark question, you can make hierarchy point 1, division of work point 2, specialization point 3, written rules and procedure point 4, permanence 5, impersonality 6, and merit-based recruitment 7. Okay, the 7 points are enough to fetch you 10 marks. Okay, so that's how you should study. And you don't have time to, memorize the explanation. Okay, you don't have time to memorize the explanation. So you have to study it point-wise, and you should explain it in your own words. You should be capable of that. You will never have the energy to study everything, to memorize everything. Our human capacity is limited, and you must understand your limitations. Civil service accountability. And civil service are also accountable to the following. As a civil servant, you will be accountable to the political representatives. You will be accountable to the minister. If you, for example, you become an ESC, you will be accountable to the minister of the department that you are a part of, which is PNAR. PNAR means Personal Administrative Reforms, and who holds the portfolio is the Minister of PNAR, Nifuru. Okay, you will be accountable to Nifuru. You will be accountable to different MLAs, because they'll be the ones creating and making laws and changing laws of your department. And yeah, they will be asking you questions, and you should always be also be answerable to the committees if they ever summon you, the parliamentary committee or the assembly, the committee in our state legislative assembly. And then your accountability in the administration section, you are accountable for the overall supervision of the various work, and you are accountable to any service rule, and you are also accountable for appraisals, meaning checking the works of your juniors and so forth. And then you are also you are also expected to maintain discipline. And when it comes to legal accountability, you should also follow the directives of the courts, statutory authorities, whatever it may be, and tribunals. Okay, so and then social. Whenever people file RTI, okay, it's part of your responsibility to give them the RTI that they ask for. Social audits, the public, the organization may ask you for audits, social audits. They may ask you for feedback. The media may come and interview you, and the civil society may try to have a conversation with you about any problem that happens in your society, the civil society. Okay, so if we talk about civil society, we're talking about NGOs. We're talking about tribal ho-hos, right? Tribal ho-hos and tribal councils, Apex Tribal Council. We have the Sumiho, we have the Ao Sandan, we have the Pom People's Council, and so forth. These are civil bodies, civil societies, or tribal councils. So these are all terms that people use, but they're all the same, okay? They're all the same. Any kind of organization in a society meant for the welfare of the people, it's called civil society. And since we're tribals, we call it sometimes tribal society. And when they talk about tribal council, they're not only talking about village council, they're also talking about the hosts and so forth. Okay, so these terms are, ambiguous as well as very vast. The scope of these terms. Okay. And next we will be discussing another topic, which is generalist and specialist. So when we talk about generalist, let's take the example of a generalist administrator. Okay, you will eventually, if you become an IS officer, you will eventually be a chief secretary. So you are a generalist administrator that handles all the departments, that oversees all the departments, right? Or even if you are the deputy commissioner, what are the roles, what are the titles? Why people wish to be deputy commissioner? Because he doesn't only hold the title of deputy commissioner, he's also the chief election officer. Okay, he's also the revenue officer. And during the at times of election, he will take the role of chief election officer. And when it comes to law and order, he is known as district magistrate. Okay, so he holds a lot of posts, government posts, pasta chuida hol gure. Itu karne manu deputy commissioner home injedo. Sachete income kiki kanla na opai pi ulai beshi ulai de. So deputy commissioner do deputy commissioner na sabi. We also lot of posts. Any given time he can be a district magistrate, he can be a district election officer, he can be the chief revenue officer. So these are titles that he officially carries. Okay, when there's revenue collection, he'll become the chief revenue officer, and when it comes to election, he will become the chief election officer and so forth. So these are roles that, the construction is going on, and they consume a lot of power. So, but please bear with me. Just give me a second. So these are generalist administrator. Okay, so they they oversee all the departments. They handle multiple departments, and then they're specialists. Specialists means you cannot give a technical exam because you did not pursue civil engineering. People who pursue civil engineering, tahan ho paruo, SU engineers kan, or people who pursue agriculture, they can become agri officer. And people who studied, soil and so forth, forestry, forest inspector, junior soil conservation officer, they're various posts, okay, technical posts. They are known as specialists. Okay. So these are two types of jobs that you will find in NPSC. There are many posts, okay. But for us, civil service, we call it NCS, NPS, and Allied Services. Nagaland Civil Service, Nagaland Police Service, and Allied Services. Okay, so when we talk about Nagaland Civil Service, what are we talking about? Are we talking about just IAS? No, we're not just talking about IAS. Okay, civil service means all the services that you know, including ARTO, including as section superintendent, right? We serve the society, right? We serve the we serve the civil organization. So you must understand what, but police is law and order based. So police is always considered separate from civil. But everything comes under civil services, okay? And then ESC would be administrative service. Huh? Civil service DSA, manang di ina kuide. Civil service exam DSA. NPSC DSA gulo technical भी हो पाए, non-technical भी हो पाए, or you can say non-technical exam दिया से NPSC ला ना. So any kind of non-technical exam आपने दियो पारो, but technical exam you need to have specialization. You need to have specialization. So that's what I meant by, you know, specialists and then generalists. Okay, so most of us, almost all of us will be generalist administrator. We will not be specialists. Obviously, we will be specialists if we hold posts such as Industries and Commerce, Inspector of Industries and Commerce. Maybe. So this needs a little bit of technical knowledge. So sometimes it could be a mixture of both. Okay, the Inspector of Industries and Commerce, it will go on to become a general manager, project manager, or assistant director, and so forth. And once they go up the hierarchy, they also have different convergence. They also conduct convergence with different departments and handle different departments. So even if they have a specialist role, sometimes they can become a generalist administrator. But for your exam, just take the example of IAS or ESC when it comes to generalist administrator, and when it comes to specialist, take the example of STO engineer. Okay, we keep it simple. Keep it simple. If you overthink too much, it's very difficult to, you know, try to define everything too exactly. So only use the general examples. Don't go too deep. Okay. Now we talk about lateral entry and mission camaraderie. So when it comes to us, we are non-lateral. Okay, non-lateral meaning we could give exam and then we step up the promotion, but lateral entry means directly alag department by. Another term would be deputation. Okay, deputation. We had one issue last year about Sino, who belongs to my village. Okay, she belongs to my village, and she is right now the director of tribal affairs. So there were complaints from certain civil organizations about her appointment to the post of director, because there's this rule that says that we should serve at least a minimum of 20 years before we become directors, irrespective of what post we hold, irrespective of who becomes what. That's like for Nagaland service rules. Okay, that's part of Nagaland service rules, not central service rules. IAS officers, they can become HOTs in like 6-7 years, and they do. Okay, they become deputy commissioners in like 4-5 years. That's an exception to that rule. But Sino, she became director before she attained 20 years of permanent service. So the complaint was made towards her, and it's still an ongoing case. Okay, so her position in the Ministry of Tribal Affairs is a lateral entry. Okay, it's a lateral entry, meaning hiring experts from outside civil service, right? But then it's all political. So when it comes to lateral entry, that particular person, he will not be a part of the original members of the department that went up according to promotion, right, seniority wise, but rather he comes in directly, and he holds the post, a very good post, right? So these are all politicized, okay, in Nagaland. These are all politicized, and it happens. Even my dad, he was the 1992 NPSC batch, and he got through 1992 NPSC as a supervisor, which is a class 2 gazetted officer. And in this group of friends, one was Elias Yandan, who is now the transport commissioner, the HOD, head of department. And we also, his friend Yong Chang, who was also the director. He retired as the director of Agri director. He was the Agri director. And then we also have one Shayung, who got the post of ESC, and who served as Deputy Commissioner of Long Leng, and then he went on and now he's serving as Joint Secretary in the Civil Secretary. Now if you look at it, what happened to my dad was he got promoted only after 26 or 27 years, okay? Now imagine staying in the same post for 26 to 27 years, because the post next to you, which is the project officer, was given to people, through contract employment, and then they were regularized. Hundreds and hundreds of project officers went in, and my dad had to wait and wait and wait and wait. And finally they formed an organization, they protested, and only after which they got the promotion, okay? So it happens, lateral entry, even in like the lower levels as well as the higher levels, okay? So everything is politicized here in Nagaland, and a lot of people face injustices. But hopefully in our time, since now we are very vigilant and there are organizations that fight for us, we have the C10, we have the ASAN and all that. Once you get a job, you will automatically be added to the WhatsApp group of ASAN, okay? And then they will ask you yearly fee, and so that's all. Kanjus no gravy, it's just a few hundreds you give them, because they'll fight for you for everything, okay? And if you're technical, then C10 and so forth, okay? There are different organizations for different job profiles. So this is lateral entry. You understand? We hire expert from outside civil services. Reality is alag ase, but in the exam you have to define it this way. Okay? Is lateral entry is the process of hiring experts from outside civil services. Okay? For their special skills, for their specialized skills, you can give reasons, and for fresh perspective to fill gaps. Okay? But concerns. In concerns, you can mention the transparency. It's not too transparent, right? Pictola, around the career integration, like we are trying so hard to get promoted, and someone comes in, right? It affects the overall integration of career progression, institutional value. Lateral entry. These are issues, okay? So that's what lateral entry is all about. This is a very common term. We always talk about it, me and then Dr. Ronsa, we always have such discussions. So lateral entry is a very popular term that you must understand. Mission Karma Yogi, National Program for Civil Services Capacity Building. It's just a national program that trains civil service, okay, to be better. Mission Karma Yogi. So they might ask you in the examination, which is why I've mentioned that it was launched in 2020 under the Prime Ministership of Narendra Modi. And competency-based learning, citizen-centric focus. From the old method to the new method, now it's citizen-centric focus, which means they teach on the basis of what the public most possibly needs from an administrator, needs from a civil servant. Okay, so it's always public-centric, citizen-centric. Instead of what we can do for the public, it's about what the public needs and how we can deliver the services to the public according to their needs, okay? So there's this platform, digital platform, I got Karma Yogi. You can check it out in the website. There's a website, you can check it out in Google. Okay. Now, administrative reforms and delegation. So please write down the first arc and the second arc. Okay. The first arc and the second arc, and try to understand the summary of the first arc and the second arc. Okay, it's very lengthy but very, very simple. These are administrative reforms. The first Administrative Reforms Commission was instituted in 1966. One fact that you must know for NPSC prelims. And the second arc was instituted in 2005, and they submitted their recommendations, and on the basis of which a lot of administrative structure exists today. Okay, based on their recommendations. Okay. They transfer, promotion, salaries, allowances, everything. First arc or second arc TSA. And we use some elements of the first arc. We also use some elements of the second arc. Okay, so both these two are important. Just because it came first and then it came second doesn't mean first doesn't work, doesn't exist. No, they exist together, just like RPA 1950 and RPA 1951, which we've discussed about yesterday. And delegation, okay, this is another important political term, delegation. For example, if in the last week, we had a Saturday roundtable discussion, right? And in that, the moderator was our administrator. Okay, his name is Yuka, and he was a moderator for the roundtable discussion alongside our special guest, Dr. Ronsu. Yuka Sir Yuga is the administrator of Focus Academy. Okay, but sometimes what he does is that he oversees everything. He ensures that the mock test is up to date. He checks the answers of every question that we prepare for the students. Okay, he also we also have discussions on the books that we need in order to prepare the MCQs, and making sure that we cover all the previous questions of NPSC. And for every question, we make sure there's at least 3 to 4 questions, similar type of questions. And so he handles all that. So imagine him handling all that. But sometimes the workload can be a little too much for him. So he delegates it. He gives it to his junior, who is the one sitting here as a receptionist. Okay, he will be typing, right? He will be printing this and that. So that's delegation of work. Okay, so in that same way, even us, okay, we are junior DA. So in our directorate this time, the director made some of the officers delegate the work to us. Okay, some of the officers were handling NPS new pension system. So what our director does is that we collect all the NPS of every department, and then we are the ones that submit it to the center. So the workload was too much, which is for all the new recruiters. We were asked to go to the director and work there for 2 months straight, like almost 7 to 8 hours, 8 days. Okay, a few months back. So that's delegation of work. So transfer of authority to lower levels for specific functions. Sometimes it's for faster decisions, reduced workload, and local responsiveness. So now you understand the meaning, right? And now we have the district administration and the deputy commissioner. I explained earlier. He serves as the district magistrate for law and order. He serves as a district magistrate for revenue. He serves as a district collector for development programs, development coordinator for disaster management. He is a chairperson of disaster management authority in the district. And during elections, he is the district election officer. So imagine, right? We used to think election do alak huwa nagi, na revenue do alak huwa nagi, but deputy commissioner do those functions can so, and there are many more functions of the deputy commissioner. Okay, these are the core functions. So just imagine how much power the deputy commissioner holds, and which is why everyone talks about becoming an ESC, right? Everyone talks about becoming an ESC. So that's exactly why. But even if you become ESC, okay, to become a deputy commissioner, it's not easy. You need to have very good political connections. You need to have very good kandan manon gumba udo time de MLA kan dagile. Power chance bisa high. But if you don't have any connection, if you don't know how to deal with the society, if you don't know how to talk with people, so it is necessary, okay? You cannot just say, my life, my rules. You have to get along with everybody. You have to say hi, hello, you have to give respect, and only then people will favor you. Okay, that's life, that's society. And sometimes a little bit of fake smile is also, it goes a long way, right? It goes a long way. So try to be the person that a lot of people wish to be, and be yourself most times when you do your work, when it's within your power. But seniors, politicians, respect the guru like it. I still remember though, back in 2008, our MLA was Tako Po. Nah? So he got the post of Parliamentary Secretary of Transport. At that time, there was no advisor. It was known as Parliamentary Secretary. Okay, there were ministers, and then the minor departments were headed by Parliamentary Secretary. Now the minor departments are headed by advisors. They use the term advisors, but at the time Tago Pom, before he became the MLA, he was a headmaster, okay, of his school. So once he became MLA, and the mission Gorgo, the place where the MLA comes and resides temporarily in Longleng, was our house. Okay, he used to come to our house and he used to reside there, and all the publics will come and then talk with him. And then the deputy commissioner came to meet him right after he won the election. Okay, and he said, "Sir, congratulations." And then the deputy commissioner sat down, showed him all the files, everything about how they're going to, run the district. He was so ambitious, the deputy commissioner, and he was so desperate for the MLA's favor, because he's going to be the chairman of the District Planning and Development Board. The MLA, again, the district deputy commissioner is so powerful, okay? But the MLA is again 100 times more powerful than. So there's hierarchy, okay, there's power differences. So you have to know how to respect the politicians. You have to be on their good side, okay. And so these are the functions of the deputy commissioner. Next we have the secretariat and directorate. Now if you look at the secretariat, there's only one secretariat, okay, Nagaland secretariat, okay, that handles everything, all the departments, but there's there's many directorate. So directorate means the core central office of any department. Every department has a directorate, okay, has a directorate. It's usually in Kohima, but there are some directorates here. Directorate of income tax. We have the income tax. We have the food and civil supplies. We have the NST. We also have the excise. So there are some, and geology and mining. Directorate is also in Dimapur. So we have around 5 to 6, but the rest is in Kohima. So this directorate means every department will have a directorate, and every directorate will have to answer to the secretariat. Okay, this is a difference. So, which is why we are the Eastern people. We are asking for a mini secretariat, because on top of not having a good road, we have to travel all the way from Longleng, all the way from Mon till Kohima for every paperwork, because secretariat is secretariat, directorate is directorate. So we're asking for a mini secretariat, one mini secretariat, and mini directorate for the major departments in the FNT, okay, demand. And if that happens, then we will have a mini directorate, maybe in Tuinsang, maybe in Mon, and then it will be easier for us to travel. And then the people would save a lot of money in the process, transportation money, and they're poor, and the present situation makes them poorer. And which is why they're asking for a mini directorate as well as a mini secretariat. Okay, that's one of our main demands. So the rest you can understand it. Policy implementation, technical support, everything is the same. Located at state headquarters, Kohima. Okay, the field level administrative reach, and executes programs and schemes headed by director or commissioner equivalent. Provides broad administrative direction headed by senior secretariat officers. So in every directorate, if you look at it, there are certain directors that are very large. Okay, so it's not headed by a director. They have 2 to 3 directors. So for example, education department, it was too large. Back then it used to be headed by a director, but now above the director we have the principal director. Same in our treasury and accounts department, we had only the director, but it became too much to handle for the director to handle. So now they have 2 directors and 1 principal director in our department. Okay, but the rest, almost all, has only director, or other term for director is commissioner, transport commissioner. Okay, so department wise, kumba director mate, kumba commissioner mate. Now we go to judicial and constitutional governance. First, we will learn about judicial activism and judicial overreach. Okay, these are very important terms. What is judicial activism? Okay, you look at judicial activism. The courts actively protect the rights and address governance failures. Okay, judicial activism is an activity of the judiciary. Okay, that directs public authorities to do this and to do that. Okay, so they issue directives to the public authorities, which isn't actually their power, right? Which is why we call it judicial activism. So there's a lot of issues surrounding judicial activism, wherein the courts actively try to interfere in the matters of the administrators, civil servants. Okay, but it becomes necessary. Judicial activism becomes necessary because even though their primary job is to review, is to judge, make judgments, is to solve cases, sometimes it becomes obligatory for them to issue warnings and directions to officers and directorates and so forth. Okay, for example, if the salary is not dispatched on time, okay, and then there's a PIL, public interest litigation, against a certain department for not issuing the salary, they can write a letter of complaint against that particular department, asking them to release the salary. But it's not the job of the court to direct. It's the job of the finance commission to issue directives to departments who are not releasing the salary to their employees, right? Because it's a finance commission that handles everything, that gives the budget. If you don't do this, then you will not receive your next budget. And it's also our job, the job of the director, treasurers and accounts. Okay, we are the ones that, without us, no money can run in Nagaland. We have the accounts officer, right? Our next promotion will be junior accounts officer after maybe 6 to 7 years, right? So as a junior accounts officer, we had a division, okay, electrical division. There's chief engineer, executive engineer, and so forth. Every voucher, every bill is signed by the divisional accounts officer, which means us, okay. And then we also have the treasurer wing in our department that will sign every salary in the district, including the deputy commissioner's salary. Okay, the deputy commissioner will not receive his salary without the signature of the treasury officer. Alright, so these are the people that can issue directions, but the court comes in. Okay, to kushi na pa officers ka. Hile na. So that's what judicial activism is about. Okay, judicial activism is about. Okay, so the courts, they actively protect the rights and interests of governance failures, expensive constitutional interpretation, public interest litigation, directives to public authorities, protection of vulnerable groups. Okay, so these are the ways in which the activism is done for expansive constitutional interpretation. Whatever is not mentioned in the Constitution, like I said, in the Manika Kandi case, right, the right to go abroad wasn't mentioned in the Constitution, but they can include certain subjects in the Indian Constitution. That's what expansive constitutional interpretation is about. Even if it's not explicitly mentioned in the Indian Constitution, they can tell a department that this right is part of the fundamental right, so you have to do this. They can interpret it, and then whenever PIL is filed, we talked about public interest litigation, it can be filed. It's not necessarily filed by the aggrieved person. Okay, so supposing you are a vulnerable group, ST, and you are in Delhi. You are a minority there. You cannot file a PIL because you're scared, because the community might come against you, might use force against you. So let's say you go to an organization, an NGO that files public interest litigation on behalf of the minorities. You go there and they'll submit a case on your behalf. For some, there were a rape case, okay, a few years back, and then her identity was not disclosed, but one NGO fought for her. They filed a PIL, public interest litigation, citing the rape case, and then demanding justice for the victim, and the victim's identity was kept a secret. So these are all PILs, right? Okay, public interest litigation. So when they file a public interest litigation, the judiciary can go beyond their normal day-to-day affairs, and they can try to intervene. They can try to interfere in the affairs of the government, in the affairs of the directorate, the secretariat, the civil servants. Okay, that's judicial activism. So there's a lot of issues surrounding judicial activism, right? And judicial overreach. Judicial activism to a certain level can be a little good, but when they go too over China, OS no. So when they become OS, okay, over smart, that means judicial overreach. The courts exceed the legitimate judicial role. Okay. So the concern, what is the concern in judicial overreach? The concern is encroachment into domains that are constitutionally assigned to the legislature and the executive. Okay, sometimes they can be a little too much for the government. And most times they're not too much, but it is the government that say that they're too much. Now they don't like the government, the MLAs, they don't like being pointed at, they don't like being shown directions. Okay. So this is judicial overreach. There are pros and cons. Okay. So now you can research and then try to find the pros and cons, some additional points, and then you can write it down. Now you understand the terms, right? So in this public interest litigation, I have already explained it, so I will skip it. And judicial appointments and collegium system. Our collegium system is a group of senior judges that appoint other judges. Okay, that's called collegium system. Instead of back then, they used to be appointed by the president in consultation with the prime minister and the council of ministers. But now, all the judges of the Supreme Court, the High Court, are chosen by the senior judges of High Court, Supreme Court. Okay, so that's collegium system. It developed through the Supreme Court's 3 judges cases, which happened in 1993. So in the 3 judges cases, the Supreme Court decided that there should be a collegium system, so to be free from political interference in the appointment of judges. So for example, if the politicians are given the power to appoint judges, they'll appoint judges that can do their bidding, right? So to be independent, it is the Chief Justice of India and the senior judges that come together as a collegium, okay, and then they recommend the appointment of judges, and officially the president will appoint the judge, but recommendations are taken from the Chief Justice and the other senior judges of High Court. Okay, that's called collegium system. Now, NJSA AC National Judicial Appointments Commission, okay, which was an organization. In 2014, Narendra Modi's government tried to introduce a bill which was called 99th Constitutional Amendment, which proposed to replace the collegium system with NJSC. Okay, so National Judicial Appointments Commission. In that commission, the Supreme Court and the judges, senior judges of Supreme Court, were not the only ones given the power to appoint the judges. People who can vote on the appointment would be the Chief Justice of India, two Supreme Court judges, law minister, ministerial involvement, law minister, and two eminent persons. Two eminent persons ko ado short arrow politicized uja. But in 2015, Supreme Court rejected it. It struck down the NJSC system and it did not allow. Okay, so Modi ji tried his best to get involved in the Supreme Court's matter, but the Supreme Court upheld the democratic nature of our country by striking down the 99th Constitutional Amendment. So now you can see the tussle between the Supreme Court and the central government, right? It always happens, okay? It always happens. There's always conflict. So now you understand the NJSC. Now, judicial pendency and tribunalization. Now, I will not be explaining too much. You can go in detail. Pendency cases, a lot of cases are pending, okay? We have some multiple crores of pending cases in the Supreme Court and High Courts. Multiple crores. Ini imagine guru. If they take your case right now, amnila case submit guru do kita hobo. Na, kusalop to kelaw lagi do. Ina ulit case jawo do. But crores and crores of pending cases, okay? Which is why they created the tribunals. I have explained to you, administrative tribunals, right? We have the POSCO court, we have the family courts, so forth. We studied about that. So that's all this slide is talking about. Okay, due to judicial pendency, we started the process of tribunalization. We added the tribunals in Part 14A of the Indian Constitution, Article 323A and 323B. 323A being tribunals, and then other tribunals, administrative tribunals, and 323B being other tribunals. So that's it. This is what this page talks about. Now, we'll be studying some Nagaland's distinct political frameworks, some few frameworks. Nagaland will be studied very extensively in the Nagaland section, in the Nagaland class, but just a few to help you understand the politics of Nagaland better. Okay, just a few points. So if you look at the state of Nagaland, we have the state system, we have the official legislature, the MLAs, but we also have the tribal system. Okay, so it's a union, it's a coexistence of our legislative laws as well as our tribal customary laws in Nagaland. So if you look at the state system, we have the legislature, we have the departments, we have the district administration, we have the police, we have the courts, we have the development. Okay, but for every up to points, let's say we have the legislature. In the legislature, we also have customary laws, and they also have their own departments. The tribal system has its own village council. They have the district administration. We have the village council and the kampuras. They have the police. We have the village guards, and they have the courts. We have our own customary courts in our villages, right? So it's the coexistence of two systems, okay? The state system and the tribal system. So if they ask you about parallel authority in Nagaland, you should use these two structures to explain the parallel authority in Nagaland. So this is the first point is parallel authority in Nagaland, and second is the constitutional shield. Every time they ask you about the constitutional shield, always know that it's you mention Article 371A, the shield, right? We are shielded. Okay, so our religious and social practice, freedom, religion. So all these 4 points, right? You look at the right side. No automatic application. No automatic application on these 4 points unless the Nagaland Legislative Assembly by resolution approves. Okay. So no automatic application. Parliamentary laws on protected subjects. These subjects require a Nagaland Legislative Assembly resolution. Dimon balna. Maybe biabi ase. So these 4 points: the religious and social practices, the customary law and procedure, land resources, civil criminal justice according to customary law. So since our land is protected, people from outside cannot own the lands. I've explained to you, right? And which is why the companies, they do not want to come to Nagaland, because the land, the only option is to lease the land for maybe 10 years, 20 years. Or Nagaland do Malik do dukan kan bisi lapas do 50,000 rent mga bi 5 lakhs bi uthai diwo third year, fourth year de na. Agreement can be mo ando owner no kore. Agreement owner no kore gule tumar kan aigena kill agreement order karna gula aur khandan ani na marwo. It's so messed up again, our state. No wonder why no one is attracted. So we should revamp. We should revise Article 371A in order to have development. So again, then center and Nagaland relations, two sources of legitimacy. It's very similar to the first point, but we are talking here about the center and Nagaland relations. Now, two sources of legitimacy: we have the customary and we have the constitutional. In the customary, we have the community norms, traditional dispute resolution, land and identity. So, community norms, we have the customs and traditions, and land and identity, we know about the ownership of land, and traditional dispute resolution. Okay, in the center Nagaland relations, you will let's take the basic case. Let's take the example of Tobashi. The Tobashis are officially appointed by the government, right, as adjudicators of issues to be solved through using our customary laws. The Tobashis are appointed, and then usually they are in deputy commissioner. Okay, they are supposed to have a separate Tobashi court, but then our infrastructure la problem ase. So usually yadibi deputy commissioner, my grandpa's younger brother was also a head Tobashi in the DC office, DC court. So every time there's an issue that needs customary laws, interpretation of customary laws, Tobashis will be called upon. Okay, so we have the Tobashis within the administrative office created by the center. So the existence, that's how the Naga Center relations, it was one of the Naga Center relations. And even in terms of laws, we have our customary laws, and then we also have the constitutional laws. Okay, so so this is the center Nagaland relations. And next we have the inner line permit. So when we talk about inner line permit, we're talking about protection at the gate. Okay, at the gate, Nagaland la Tilai gate, Arao Golagat side la gate na. Have you guys been to Mughal Garden? A restaurant. There's a restaurant in Mughal Garden. Okay, like I really like Indian cuisines, so I used to go there twice every month to Mughal Garden with one friend. I have one friend. His name is Imli Akham. He's the youngest in the family. He's like a baby, so he likes all those foods, Indian foods. So he's such an exciting person. I would go with him. I would recommend Mughal Garden. Ini time pass ko ase. So Mughal Garden is really good. Okay, in Kolaghat Road. So protection at the gate. So whenever I go to Mughal Garden, I always look at Nagaland gate. Assam police be the gate bargona thago, man be the gate pichire thago. Action be ini ka sai dege. Action ke na. Naga manu kan to Assam manu kan ki tik tak check kore do. Aro Assam police kan be Naga manu ki tik tak check kore do. So when we look at ILB, so they need to have an ILB permit. People from outside Nagaland, they need to have an ILB permit in order to enter Nagaland. So even if people from Arunachal, they come here to Nagaland, they need a permit. Okay, ILB permit, which can be done online. Without the ILB permit, they'll have to be detained in the jail. They'll have to pay fines and so forth. Okay, there are different punishments based on the severity. So it controls the entry of non-indigenous persons into protected areas. Non-indigenous person into our state, ILB, inner line permit. So inner line permit, for example, if people are coming here to settle, they should also state the reason why they're entering Nagaland. So we have the freedom not to issue the ILB inner line permit to them. For example, if we go to Delhi, If you go to, there's no ILP, everyone is free, every Indian is free to go there and settle there and become residents of Delhi. But Nagaland did not know. We are the ones that decide who become the settlers, okay, who become the residents. So they'll have to state their reason. If they're just a tourist, we give them an ILP for like 7 days, 12 days, whatever their needs are, right? And that's ILP, okay? We protect the state from the influx of non-indigenous people into our state, which might affect the social fabric of our state. So the legal basis, what's the legal basis? Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873. So Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873 was enacted by the British government, okay, in order to protect tea states. So Assam was also one of the tea states, right? From outside interference, private traders can have a protected area going on Tagisha. Okay, so later on it evolved into the ILB system. It's still part of, in the notification 2025 ILB notification of Nagaland, we take a look at the ILB notification of 2025 Nagaland law, and you will find that there's a statement, okay, at the beginning, okay, on the basis of the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act of 1873, the government hereby declares the so and so for ILP. So we still use Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873. This is the official ILP, okay, in the exam. Inner line permit, the official inner line permit, the official legal basis for inner line permit is Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation 1873. Do not forget that, okay? So don't get confused in the future. Some people, they have this confusion that we evolved from Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation, but now it's officially called ILP. No. The legal basis still is BEFR. Okay, do not forget that. So the states where ILP is currently applicable, Arunachal, Nagaland, Mizoram, Manipur. So one question is, do people from Arunachal freely get to enter Nagaland? Because they're also part of the ILP. No, okay. Nagaland bhi Mizoram chale to ILP lagibo, Nagaland bhi Manipur chale to ILP lagibo. Arunachal bhi Nagaland chale ILP lagibo. But ILP do na freedom ekta thake. Yeah, for example, the people in Arunachal can have a non-restricting clause towards Naga people. Naga manu kan to aho parbo, aru mon bhi Arunachal kan to aho parbo. Now we can open our borders to some states. But yet bhi mon INSN IMPRA, they are claiming the Tirap Changlang area of Arunachal Pradesh, and then disputed area belt, the Rengma Reserve Forest, all these are claimed by the NSC and we are also claiming the territories of Myanmar in the Noklak side and then Mon side. So yet be all of sensitive as it. We're not too welcome, okay, in a lot of states. So this is what ILB is about. Now FNT. Now FNT, if you look at Frontier Nagaland Territorial Administration, this is the current update, okay? Just the current update of FNT. If it's not too visible, I will enlarge it a little bit, yeah. So ENBO demand for greater autonomy. I'll tell you guys a very interesting story, okay? When ENBO initially made the decision to demand a separate state, the Konyak people, they came to Longling, okay? They come to Longling way back in 2007. And at the time, our Hoho, our Ausandan, Sandan Nishna, Lota Ho Nishna, ours is PPC, Home People's Council, okay? And there my dad was the General Secretary of PPC, which means next to the President. So the Konyak people, they came and then they had a meeting, and then even my dad was one of the signatories, okay, of the original document drafted to demand a separate statehood. And after that, the Konyaks, they gave us Mithun, and we didn't have much money, so we gave them Kauri. Inala ekta story ekta se 2007 they start Kuala. And then they demanded greater autonomy. And see, this is one example, okay? The ENBO people will fight against the Naga government and so forth. But you being an administrator, me being an administrator, we shouldn't get involved, okay? We're educated people, we're literate people, and we have a good job, we should stay neutral. We must make sure that the state runs smoothly while they solve out the issues, okay? So the ENBO first demanded greater autonomy beginning from 2007. And so the center and state and then the ENBO negotiations happened, and on Feb 5, 2026, the memorandum of agreement was signed. between the center, the Nagaland and the ENPO, the tripartite MOA 보이래. 또 우리 MOA 데 키 사인 그리시 그래도 FNT 도 accept 그리시 center 바. 아르 state 바비 아차 그리시. 아르 UN 바비 yes. 나 खुशी पाइसे तीनटा पार्टी भी खुशी पाइसे state खुद तो state तो अलग न होगा we will be a part of Nagaland but certain autonomy will be given to the eastern people so that's what FNT is about ना तो इनका होगी ना Feb 5 2026 ते tripartite agreement sign करेंगे वो तो पिछले draft करेंगे FNTMPO draft करेंगे ना Nagaland दे FNTPO draft करेंगे ना 26 March 2026 just few months back okay FNDA bill was introduced in the Nagaland Legislative Assembly. Kohima de Legislative Assembly de MLA kan pura aise to the FNDA bill de introduce krise. But issue ekta olai jise yate tan pass krise gile hosa de ite FNDA thagyo daga de. But what happened was that there was this constitutional question. Can FNDA be given legislative powers through state legislation? Does state have the power to give powers, legislative powers to FNDA? Because it affects the constitution, right? The Indian constitution. And the state, there was a question on whether the state has enough power to make the change in the Indian constitution. So they referred it to the Ministry of Home Affairs, okay? Ministry of Home Affairs, and there was this legal examination, and then the bill was on 27 March, the next day, the Ministry of Home Affairs of Nagaland had a legal examination, and on the next day, 27 March, the bill was referred to the center, and the center returned it to the government of Nagaland, right, saying that it needs more time to examine it, the constitutional validity, because constitution against Najol lagi the moment it goes against Rahul Gandhi uthode, Modi ji, na, aro, what did you do? Na, why are you against the ideals of democracy? Okay, inago. So tambi hotai under scrutiny there again. So further constitutional or legal examination right now is ongoing. Okay, it's ongoing. They will try, and they will try. So what's the next stage? Next stage after this is done, after the Solicitor General. Okay, the Solicitor General will look at the legality of the Solicitor General of India will look at the legality of the bill and see whether it's constitutionally valid or whether it needs the intervention of the central government, the Indian Parliament, and whatever it may be. Answer to paijabo. The next stage is going to be a legally constitutionally revised framework. Ito natun bill thakibo, and then assembly consideration will pass a bill and FNTA will come into force. Okay, so that's what FNTA. Now the features of FNTA though ito finalized on it, so I will not be teaching you guys. Once it's official, we can discuss on what are the subjects given to FNTA, whether there's a mini secretariat, whether there's a military. And now it's just rumors, it's just gossip. Okay, so I don't want to increase the intensity of scandal here inside the classroom. Now we move on to the 12 shadows of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so the 12 shadows of the Indian Constitution is going to be a little vast. So I'll give you guys, I mean not little vast, we'll get it done in 20 to 30 minutes. So I'll give you guys a 2-minute break. Okay, a 2-minute break, and then we will start with the 12 shadows of the Indian Constitution plus representation of the People's Egg. So for the representation of the People's Egg, okay, I will not be explaining it. Since I already explained the basics, I will be giving you guys the notes, and if you guys don't understand, then you guys can ask me. Okay, RPA 1950 pre-election, 1951 post-election, and there are rules and regulations. Okay, very easy ones. You need to be 18 years of age to vote, right? You need to be this and that, and all those you can know it. Okay, RPA 1950 and 91, but we will dig into the 12 shadows of the Indian Constitution now. Okay, I'll give you guys a 2-minute break. And does anyone need water? Yes? Okay, okay. Please remain seated. I'll take it. Okay, so the 12 schedules of the Indian Constitution. Let's start off with the 12 schedules of the Indian Constitution. What are the schedules of the Indian Constitution? Please take a look at, first take a look at these 5 points. Schedules are supplementary provisions attached to the Constitution. Like I said, it becomes too bulky. They attach everything to the original Constitution. So these are supplementary provisions attached to the Constitution. Okay, it's part of the Indian Constitution. It is attached to the Indian Constitution. They contain detailed information. Short to the Constitution, they are saying they contain very detailed information that supports and complements the articles. Okay, the articles. So all these schedules are mentioned in different articles. We have the states and union territories, part 1 of the Indian Constitution, Article 1 to 4, right? And then we also have the Panchayats, Article 243 to 243O, municipalities 243B to 243ZG, right? We studied about that. So articles are all scattered, okay? So then the Constitution originally had 8 schedules, up to 8 languages, and then the 9th schedule, 10, 11, 12 was added after the commencement of the Indian Constitution. New schedules were added through constitutional amendments. Okay, so let's look at the first schedule, states and union territories. I will not be explaining too much. The schedule will contain all the names of the states and union territories, and if there's a change in the name of the state, if there's a change in the territory of the state, they do not change the Constitution, they just change the schedule. Okay, so you have to know this, and it specifies their territorial extent, the extent to which the state of Assam is, what it is bordered with, and so forth. All the details are mentioned, and it is closely connected to Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it reflects the changes in territorial organization of India. Every time there's a change, it will be reflected. Now, India, that is Bharat, shall be a union of states. Article 3, Parliament may form a new state, alter, and so forth, right? So they don't need any kind of constitutional amendment to add or to remove it here, okay? They just add it. New state of Ladakh was created was carved out of Jammu Kashmir. It was added here, okay? So second, will contain the salaries, allowances, and conditions of service of specified constitutional authorities, namely the President of India, the governors of states, the presiding officers of Parliament, President of Rajya Sabha, Speaker of Lok Sabha, and so forth, presiding officers of state legislature, the Chairman and the Speaker of Legislative Assembly, the judges of Supreme Court of India, the judges of High Courts, Comptroller and Auditor General. Now, do you guys remember we talked about the independence of judiciary, in which we talked about the conditions of service, the salaries and allowances are mentioned in the Indian Constitution, and they cannot be removed easily. So this ensures independence of judiciary, right? It's mentioned in the Constitution. This is it, okay? The salaries and allowances, and it's taken up from the CFI, Consolidated Fund of India. So these are the officers mentioned in the second schedule, their salaries, their allowances, and conditions of service. Okay, so salaries and allowances you can research, right? But they have never asked, and I don't think they will ever ask, how much salary does the President of India get? Na, iman tak to hutan na ida. Kudio pare, the President or maybe President, Governor, it differs from one state to another, but President maybe tala salary ekor side to be. It's around 4 lakhs. Now, third schedule, oaths and affirmations. Okay, oaths and affirmations. The union ministers, members of parliament, judges of Supreme Court, CAG, state ministers, members of state legislature, and judges of high courts. So, okay, these are the participants here. You look at the third schedule, it contains the forms of oath and affirmations prescribed by the Constitution. It applies to specified constitutional authorities and elected representatives. Okay, so if you look at it, there's no precedent here. Oath la na. Though the precedent la oath, though it's mentioned in the Indian Constitution itself. Okay, Part 5 of the Indian Constitution, precedent la section there, oaths already mentioned Gurnasa, which is why Schedule 9. Okay, so the oath of the president is mentioned in Part 5 of the Indian Constitution or the schedule. Third schedule it's part 5 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, not the schedule. Schedule did the yadi. Okay, which of the following is not a participant of the oath and affirmation prescribed in third schedule? When they'll give you a list: Union Minister, Member of Parliament, Judges of Supreme Court, and the President. Right answer is the President. Na tay nai do yede. So it is important distinction as they. Very important distinction. Don't forget it. The exact form of oath is mentioned in the third schedule. So yede members of state MLA kan oath kan na kushi likhala no ide. I promise to be this and that. Everything is mentioned in the third schedule. Okay. Now, fourth schedule, allocation of Rajya Sabha seats. Again, Rajya Sabha de every state te kiman seat thagibo, kina thagibo, district state wise. It's always on the basis of population, right? Everything. So the fourth schedule of the Constitution provides for the allocation of seats in the Rajya Sabha among the states and union territories. I will skip that explanation. The fourth schedule, very simple, right? Allocation of seats. The every state like kiman seat as a pura mention korigina as de. We have the fifth schedule, scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. We talked about the fifth schedule earlier, and it's the constitutional basis is Article 244, relations between the union and states. Do you guys remember? Part 10 of the Indian Constitution, relations between the union and states. We talked about the fifth schedule and the sixth schedule. The fifth schedule, scheduled areas declared by the president. There are 10 states with scheduled areas. So I will not be going into the detail, but who declares scheduled areas? And who handles scheduled areas? Look at this. For major features, special administration of scheduled areas provides for a distinct administrative mechanism that address the unique needs of tribal regions. Okay, it is only for tribal regions, and it is to address the unique needs of the tribal regions, which is why they declared the areas as scheduled areas. And special responsibilities of the governor. It is the president. Okay, the president declares scheduled areas. The president may, by order, declare any area as a scheduled area. Now, it is the president who declares scheduled area, but the second point, the governor has special duties to ensure the welfare and advancement of the tribes. Okay, so even though the president declares the area as a scheduled area, it is the governor that administers the scheduled area. Do not forget that. We were asked the same exact question last year in the preliminary examination. A lot of my friends got it wrong. Okay, it talked about the administration of scheduled area. The right answer was the governor, but they gave president as the answer. But the president only declares, okay? But it is the governor that administers. So even Tribal Advisory Council, we talked about Tribal Advisory Council created in those scheduled areas, and they only have an advisory role. And it is up to the governor either to listen or to reject. Now we talked about that, do not forget that, okay? The Tribal Advisory Council only has a advisory role, okay? So it is the governor that makes regulations for the peace and good governance of scheduled area, but it is the president who declares a scheduled area. These are very important points of the fifth scheduled areas and scheduled tribes. And I would urge you guys to memorize all the 10 states, and that's it. Fifth schedule lado, don't memorize anything more. Understand these 2 points, and the governor and the president, and then scheduled areas and scheduled tribes la, the states that are mentioned in scheduled areas and scheduled tribes, the 10 states. Understand that, and the constitutional basis, Article 244, and you are good to go. Okay? Now in the fifth schedule, first we will, before we skip the sixth schedule, the process, okay? The process. Now, number 1, the president declares an area as a scheduled area, right? The president declares an area as a scheduled area and can alter, increase, or rescind scheduled area declarations. Now, you understand that point? The governor. The governor has special responsibilities regarding scheduled areas and can make regulations, rules, okay, concerning transfer of tribal land, allotment of land to members of scheduled tribes, and money lending to scheduled tribes. Money lending, it was necessary, okay, with the time in the scheduled tribes, they were involved in money lending, private money lending, they should be able to pay family can be like so they had to make regulations for it as well. And Tribes Advisory Council, we talked about TSC advisory role, but final decision though governor lahate ase. Okay. So now sixth schedule, tribal areas of Northeast. So the 4 states that are under the 6th schedule is Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Okay. So if you look at the 5th schedule and the 6th schedule, the 5th schedule only declares 10 the tribal areas in the states, but they have not given them any kind of autonomy. Okay. They are not given any kind of autonomy in the 5th schedule. It's just a declaration of certain area as a 5th schedule area, and then the governor can make certain rules and regulations, right? But here in the 6th schedule, all the states, 4 states mentioned, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram, and in those 4 states, the areas where the tribals are, minorities are, they have their own autonomous council. We talked about Karbi Anglong, autonomous council. Okay, so 6th schedule area gives much more power to the people, to the tribal people. Okay, and which is why everyone wants to be under 6th schedule. Here, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, and Mizoram. Key state nai, Manipur nai, Arunachal nai. Both these 2 states have been demanding to be included in 6th schedule. Okay, they receive a lot of funds from the center, direct funds. But then FNTB receive kroleze. So the major feature, autonomous district councils and autonomous regional council. District council thakibo, utu milai kena regional councils can be thakibo. Okay, structure varies from state to state, but basic is autonomous district council ase, and they'll have certain autonomy over certain subjects. Right, the state cannot legislate on, let's say forest. Autonomous district council about laws ponawa, funds kami tani tarik pai jabo. Okay. Inyala autonomous district council as they have legislative powers as well. I talked about legislative powers, right? But they have legislative powers as well. Legislative, administrative powers, and they also have judicial powers. Okay, tanla customary laws that very similar to Article 371A, except that Article 371A, they don't want the subjects are not given to us, but instead subjects are protected from the state. Certain subjects, non-financial subjects. But here, financial subjects can say. Usakan, for example, forest, and then I think forest, land resources, minerals, and all that utila protection. So the list varies from state to state, but they have a certain autonomy, legislative autonomy. They'll have certain subjects on which they can make laws. Now, and then law and order that they can make laws for the community, and they have executive functions as well. The funds, they use the funds in order for the development from. To develop their community, and they also have a judicial power in the autonomous district council. So customary laws and traditions is up there, they make judgments. Okay, there are limitations, of course, for cases involving that and that sum of amount. For large serious cases, the district court will handle it, but for minor petty cases in the village, the autonomous district council has the power. Now these are the powers of autonomous council. I've already explained it. And now this is the comparison between the 5th and 6th schedule. Both these 2 are mentioned in Part 10 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, schedule and tribal areas. 244.1, 244.2. One is schedule area and one is tribal area. Applies to specific tribal areas outside 6 schedule states, and governor has special responsibilities, tribes advisory council, and so forth. You read on that once you go home. Okay. Now, Article 371A, Nagaland. NPC boy, Nagaland is not a 6 schedule area, right? So we have the Article 371A. Okay, you can take a look at that. It's the same as the one I mentioned earlier, so I will skip that. We are not part of the 6th schedule, but we have Article 371A. Now we have 7th schedule, distribution of legislative powers. We talked about the legislative relations between the union and states, right? Relations between the union and states, Part 11 of the Indian Constitution. We talked about the legislative relations between the union and states, 245 to 55, Article 246 to 263, administrative relations, And then part 12, finance, property, contracts and suit, 264 to 293, financial relations between the union and states. So this is the distribution of legislative powers is mentioned in 7th schedule, okay, of the Indian Constitution. So it's linked primarily with Article 246, which divides the legislative powers into union, state, and concurrent list. Okay, so union or state or concurrent list divide kurse aru udon subjects kana pura moi schedule de ase busu to 7th schedule will contain all the list, state list kiman ase, union list kiman ase, or concurrent list kiman ase pura mention kurigina ase. Let's take a look at the union list: defense, armed forces, foreign affairs, citizenship, railways, banking, currency and coinage, atomic energy, communication, interstate trade and commerce. All these are examples of union lists. Okay, and state lists, we have public order, police, public health and sanitation, agriculture, local government, markets and fairs, land, state public services, fisheries. Okay, these are part of the state list. And then we have the concurrent list. We have criminal law, criminal procedure, marriage and divorce, education, forest, labor welfare, electricity is a concurrent list, economic and social planning, adoption and succession. Okay, and there are many other lists. There are many other subjects you can pick up the good ones and you can memorize. You can't memorize everything, right? But memorize the core ones. Don't forget marriage. Don't forget defense, railways. These are core subjects, okay? And it's very obvious. We know that Indian Railway is owned wholly by the central government. It's so obvious. It makes us look dumb. And so state list done, concurrent list done, and exceptions to the state list. Now, in exceptions to the state list, we talked about the different subjects in the state list, right? But there are certain exceptions to the state list, okay? When can the parliament legislate on state list? If they ask you a 10-mark question. Okay, this is a very interesting way of asking a question and quite confusing as well. They already gave us a state list, right, earlier? Police, for example. But when can the parliament intervene? When can the parliament come and make laws for the state mentioned in the state list? Certain conditions, okay? Article 249. This is one of the special powers of Rajya Sabha, right? Rajya Sabha has two special powers. Power to create or abolish all India services. We talked about IAS, we talked about IPS, we talked about IFOS. The three all India services. It has a power to create and abolish. Okay, was the Rajya Sabha that created IAS, IPS and IFOS. And another power is power to declare a subject of state list as a subject of national importance. Rajya Sabha la power do. So when the Rajya Sabha under Article 249 declares a subject of state list as a subject of national importance, then the parliament can legislate on state list. Now, in a situation, let's take the example of police. Now, yede pula home affairs pun dah je. Nah, MLA to taiba tanla manu bi isi ke kusai di situ. Bisi kusai di sana. To ina hoy gina Rajya Sabha saya na tu bisi chamla huwa. Nagaland de protest kan ulawo. Pat mandu ulana kile kwan isna ekta tribe like ken jale to utu tribe kusau di jay. Very sensitive to. Instagram dekla keyboard warrior ho mare na we criticize on YouTube and stuff, but practically no one jaw na bredo. So in such a case, the Rajya Sabha will declare that state subject, police, as a subject of national importance. It is necessary for the security of the state of Nagaland for the central government to intervene and make laws on the state list, particularly police. Ina go baro. Okay, so in that condition, Article 249 will come into effect. Next is Article 252. Now 250. During a proclamation of national emergency, it's very obvious. I've already explained that. National emergency la time to do. National emergency. Now during war, external aggression, armed rebellion. These are where the three conditions, right? So unya time to do national emergency declare karate, they can make laws on any state list. Okay? Kilo gulo to China lot pedo kile ase. Nagaland la state list police to mo lahat say we might not be technically gifted. Nagaland state might not be technically gifted, so they might make laws on law and order, specifically the police. They might bring in special armed forces here in Nagaland, and then let them reside in the police quarters and headquarters in like for security reasons. Article 252, when two or more states request, moi question Assam or Nagaland chamlaw laise, to tajun ba baba, you remember that dialogue, baba, mon gane to issue the solve political do. They can intervene. Article 253, to implement international treaties, agreements or conventions. Now state list there are certain subjects in the state list which were affected by sustainable goals, okay, SDG goals, which was an international treaty signed in 2015, right, which is a target for the next 15 years up to 2030 to achieve certain target to solve and to improve the issue of to improve global warming. Ideally to 1.5, but target is 2 degrees Celsius for the next 100 years, okay. Now 253 you understand, to implement international treaties, agreements and conventions. Article 356 udu amni janina je to state emergency president's rule na udu time de aro legislative power on state list and residual powers. Now when we talk about residual powers, Article 248 gives parliament power over matters not enumerated in the state or concurrent list. Ina time de do state ke aigina bana baro. Can you guys think of any subject that's not mentioned there? That's not mentioned in the state list and union list and then the concurrent list. Some crazy, let's come up with a very crazy subject. Let's say transgender, okay. Transgender is one subject. It became a nationwide movement and it had to be, the issue had to be solved, but we don't have transgender in the union list, state list, concurrent list. So it becomes a residual power, right? So the state, the center can make laws on transgenderism in Nagaland. Itu po ase, edito. Not mentioned in either of the three lists. The union can make lists. Now you understand in what ways the union can interfere in the affairs of the state, in the affairs of Nagaland. Okay, that's how. And next we have the 8th schedule. Okay, we're nearing the end of our session. Okay, so please bear with me. 8th schedule will contain the languages. All the 22 languages recognized under the Constitution will be mentioned in the 8th schedule. Okay, it originally contained 14 languages. 14 languages and it was added through various constitutional amendments. You can take a look at the different amendments and then the languages added since 1967. And Konkani, Manipuri, Nepali, Poro, Tokri, Maithili, Santali, Oriyan, renamed Odia. So these are Oriya renamed Oriya. Important additions to constitutional amendments. Okay, you can memorize that. And 9th schedule. It was added by the first constitutional amendment of 1951. Originally, we had only eight schedules. The first schedule that was added was the 9th schedule, which was added by the first constitutional amendment 1951. It was originally intended to protect land reform laws, okay, linked with Article 31B. Now, in the fundamental rights section, I did not talk about Article 31B, but there's a reason why, okay. Now, Article 31B is very unique in the sense that it protects the state against fundamental rights. But it had to be mentioned in the fundamental rights. Why? It had something to do with land reforms. Okay, whatever reforms the central government takes in relation to land, now transfer of land, ownership of land, this and that, it cannot be questioned by the judiciary. Okay. Inyala ekta Article 31B mentioned kurigina. So you research on that. It says that whatever land reforms, everything, it cannot be questioned in court. And now just imagine that this land, let's say we have the right to equality, but the land was taken away by the Indian government. Now just imagine, okay, the land was taken by the Indian government and we go to the court. and say that it is my fundamental right to own the land, but the central government took it. Now, if the court goes against the central government can say Article 31B is also a fundamental right. Not just right to equality. No. Itu karne Article 31B rakhala ase to counter against the fundamental rights claimed by the people. And why is the Supreme Court not striking it down? Because necessary hui jai do. Even the Supreme Court understands that the center needs to have some extra powers in relation to land reforms. Itu karne ase, and especially during the post-constitutional, post-independence era, right? We had a lot of tussle with more than 500 princely states, privy purses, right? The annual allowances given to them and all that. Lots of issues, land reforms. We had the zamindari system, we had the Enda zamindari system as well, talukdari system, mazadari system. We had a lot of issues related to land reforms, okay? And this was inserted, Article 31B was inserted by Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister, to give power to the central government to handle affairs related to land reforms independently without court interference every single time. And even the court, even if it doesn't want to interfere, it needs to though. I court case I see though, be handle go like it though. They also need to protect the fundamental rights. The court be helpless with China. But now that Article 31B is inserted, the court can also tell the public, hey, they also have a fundamental right to reform the land, to acquire the land, to allocate the land. Itu karne Article 31B talal has. Now, I want you guys to research on Article 1A, Article 1B. These two are the same, okay? It's related to land reforms. So, this is it. Just have a basic understanding. They're never going to ask you to define it, but if they ever ask, they're going to ask you in the preliminary question, okay? Article 31B is related to which of the following? The answer is land reform. Okay, that's the only thing you need. You don't need to know Jawaharlal Nehru and all that, Utuan Janulan, the history, the background, not necessary. Just for your understanding, the allows it. Now, 9th schedule there, laws placed in the 9th schedule receive constitutional protection from certain grounds of challenge. Okay, but in the landmark case 2007, now the center had a lot of protection with regards to land reforms, but in 2007, IR, you look at this IR Kilo versus State of Tamil Nadu 2007, the laws inserted into the 9th schedule after 24 April 1973. Now, initially, post-independence period was a very sensitive period. We understand that. The Supreme Court said that. Whatever land reforms you guys do before 1973, even if anybody comes here, I will say that they are protected under Article 31B and B. But any kind of land reforms after 24 April 1973, it can be tested against basic structured doctrine. Okay, there are legal battles between the union government and the public. There's been legal battles going on for more than 30 years even. Land issue lana mati as though the issue iterak sabi pisias de. So Supreme Court decided that 24 April 1973 was the breaking point. Okay, from 24 April 1973 onwards, any kind of land reforms will be subject to judicial review. But utula agiri do sukupon even the court. Eko no ko moy. Okay, so you understand the difference. 9 schedule. This is it. That's all you need to know about 9 schedule. The rest are all land reform laws, so you can read it. But these are some special points that I wanted to give to you guys. Now, 10th schedule. Okay, anti-defection law. We're nearing. This is the last third or fourth slide. 10th schedule, anti-defection law. We discuss about defection. If you defect from one party to another party, imagine you're an independent candidate and you join a party. Imagine that you won the election after being supported by the Congress party, but then you join the BJP party. It one garne it anti-defection law introduced Kerala. Just imagine Narendra Modi. Okay, let's say BJP candidates can get cross campaign pi chahe se. Aru tu manan election jita bise Congress hui jale do. That's not moral, okay? It only anti-defection laws can say. Judi iniga goshe bule do, you will be disqualified. Iniala na ikana. So, a member may face disqualification for voluntarily giving up membership of a political party, voting or abstaining contrary to the party direction. Kwan is na so manu ki vote diya se tan bi vote diwa lage party de. Party la against parliament de court hagi shugule do disqualification pawo. An independent member joining a political party after election, having no party affiliation, but after election he joins a party, it breaks the trust of the people. Okay, let's say I don't like Congress or BJP, and if one MLA, let's say Moatushi, in the next election joins contest election as an independent candidate, so I appreciate him because he did not join any political party, right? It aligns with my political ideology, and then I vote for him. And if he joins BJP, though, it's a betrayal, though, against my vote. It's a betrayal against my vote. It only independent party can be a political party join Gronapa. Okay. A nominated member joining a political party after 6 months. No, nominated members. Nominated members are members nominated by the president. Okay, any member nominated by the president, within 6 months they can join a political party. But beyond 6 months they cannot. Itu ekta rule as today for nominated members. Means election ban naja direct nominate president bra. So these are issues surrounding anti-defection. Now let's look at the exceptions and landmark cases. Exception. When can what's the exception here? The merger exception. We talked about 2/3, right? A member is protected from disqualification when there is a merger satisfying the constitutional requirement. At least 2/3 of the members of the legislative party must agree to the merger. And let's go to the second point, then I'll explain the first and the second. Important, the earlier split exception was removed by the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act 2003. Now up to 2003, the exception was not the first point, not the merger exception, split exception before 2003. The split exception if 33% 1/3 of the party they split, meaning PGB la 100 manu ase 100 manu de 1/3 to kiman hobo 33 June 133 June power like jale irrespective of which party they form, or even if they become independent party, whatever it may be, if they split together 31 June 33 June split they won't be disqualified because 33% as now 1/3 ulai jale. But now iniga noy itia do 2/3 means out of 100 people 66, right? 2/3 means 66 June split hua noy alag party they merge hoi jala खुशी खुशी ulai na tan jo party hua la noy tan ikilo chaina ekta party they merge hoi jale ekla tan disqualify no hobo. Okay, which means popular opinion do ekilo jala. So the people understand, the government understand, the speaker understands that it has a reason. Okay, the reason is genuine. Pujas na ida merger and split. Okay, so who decides? I told you that it is a speaker who decides whether the defection law should be applied to an individual, whether he should be disqualified. But the decision of the speaker is always subject to judicial review. I also mentioned that yesterday. To be yad thagivide. So that's all about anti-defection. Now, chutu mudu rules, you can study it. Okay. 11th schedule. Now we're done with anti-defection, which was the 10th schedule, and we have the last two: 11th schedule, panchayats, and 12th schedule, municipalities. Okay. Now the panchayats, it was aided by the 73rd Constitutional Amendment of 1992. I mentioned that early in our class, and every time there's a Constitutional Amendment Act, okay, now it's written 1992, but it comes into force a year later or a few months later, so it came into force in 1993. Okay, it is linked with Article 243, but 243G explicitly mentions that the panchayat contain 29 subjects. Okay, so these 29 subjects are mentioned in detail in the 11th schedule. Okay, and then whatever changes they make, subjects and kunpa panchayats, kunpa municipalities, they changes thagile the schedule they thagibo article de constitution de khali some certain subjects will be devolved to panchayats. Same with municipalities. Certain subjects will be devolved to municipalities, but actual subjects on the schedule de likhina. Okay, that's the difference, na schedule de. So these are the 29 subjects. Now let me ask you guys a question, okay? Are these 29 subjects compulsory for all the states to follow? Yes or no? The answer is no, okay? So it's kind of like an advisory list, a kind of guideline for the states, but it is up to the state whether to give this power to the panchayat. But with those subjects under delay phala se when likhalas de. But not only for the states, public kan garne. Public can be states can yadi out of 29 khali tinda dise. To this list haigina do now we have an idea. Alag states can kiman pai ase aru to list kiman pawle lage, we can demand more power looking at the state. Na? So to help the bring balance within the state, and then the panchayats who to list the provide kurala ase. Okay? Now anything outside of this list cannot be given again for security measures. Police though cannot be given to the panchayats. So union list probably uto list se thakakan toan dio pare na dio pare toan majud e chucha chuju gurubi mola opore na ibo inana diala asde. So all these differences you need to understand. Okay, just because it's mentioned 29 subjects doesn't mean every state government devolves this power to their own respective panchayats. No. Okay, I hope you guys understood. Now the 12th schedule, municipalities, added by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992. It was both enacted at the same time, okay, 73rd and 74th, 1992, same time, one after another, and contains 18 subjects, like I said, and same explanation. Na every state la oporte ase, udo kiman subject dibo, kiman na dibo, okay. Now this the 12th schedule. Just a one-look revision. That's the end of my presentation for today. So please take a look from 10, 11 schedule. And if you guys have any confusion, okay, there's a kind of mistake with something. I think I didn't check the last page. 10, 11, 12. So let's take a look at this. We have the states and union territories. First schedule. Second, salaries, allowance, and conditions of service. Third, oaths and affirmation. Fourth, Rajya Sabha seat allocation. Now, first and fourth, it's better to memorize it together. Okay, first and fourth, and then 56, the fifth schedule, and then the sixth schedule we know, right? It's better to memorize 5 and 6 together. 7 and 8, it's better to 7, 8, and 9. It's better to memorize it together. 7, 8, 9, and 10, better to memorize it together. 11 and 12, though we know panchayat or municipalities. Easier to memorize it that way. So I hope you guys memorize it. If